The story you're about to hear is not about the biggest names of the 70s. It's not ABBA. It's not Fleetwood Mac. It's not the Eagles. It's about the other side of the decade, the side that radio quietly used, chewed up, and then threw in the dark. This is the story of the bands that should have made it and didn't. Because here's the truth nobody likes to say out loud. In the 1970s, pop was a battlefield. If you were lucky, you got remembered as classic. If you weren't lucky, you got remembered as who was that again? And sometimes that line had nothing to do with talent. In this video, we're gonna pull 10 names out of that shadow, 10 real bands, real songs, real chart runs, bands that hit the top 10, even hit number 1, and still got written out of pop history like it never happened. Bands that should have been legends. Before we jump in, I want you to do something. Think of one song from the 70s you love, but nobody around you knows. Lock that in. Keep it in your head. By the end of this countdown, I want to know if it's on this list or if we need to make a part 2, because here's what we're going to do. Act 1 of this story is simple. We set the scene. The 70s look shiny in memory. Disco balls, soft rock on FM radio, big hair, big hooks. Everybody smiling on TV, but behind that smile was pressure. Labels were signing fast, dropping faster. Radio was gate-kept by a few program directors, one missed single, one bad manager, one promotion guy not picking up the phone, and your career was over forever. And that's where these bands lived. Some of them had one massive hit and then got mislabeled as one-hit wonders, even though they were way more than that. Some had beautiful writing, perfect harmonies, the kind of choruses you hear one time and you're humming it all day, and they still never got the machine behind them. Some never even got proper distribution. Imagine recording a perfect album and fans literally can't find it in the store. That happened. You're gonna hear about a band from Memphis that basically invented emotional power pop years before the term indie was cool, and got nothing for it. You're gonna hear about a smooth West Coast heartbreak track that hit number 1 in America, got played on both pop and R&B radio, and the band still vanished from mainstream memory. You're gonna hear about a group of women from South Africa who broke into the European charts during a politically ugly moment when certain countries didn't even want to play them on TV, and they still forced a hit across borders. This is not nostalgia, this is correction. Because when we say 10 forgotten 70s pop bands who deserved more recognition, we're not just listing songs, we're asking a bigger question. Why do some names get protected and others get erased? Was it timing? Was it image? Was it politics? Was it money? Or was it just that pop culture only has room for a few heroes per decade and everyone else gets quietly pushed off stage? Across this episode, we're going to build that case. We're going to walk into the late-night studios, the cheap tour vans, the bad contracts, the one miracle single that almost broke them through. We're going to show you what they gave us and how close they came to being the group your older cousin swears was the sound of '78. And here's the part where you come in. I want you in the comments on this one. While you watch, tell me which band on this list should have blown up. Tell me who got robbed. Tell me who you still play, because pop history is only history if people keep saying the names out loud. So let's say them. This is Act 1. This is the setup. This is the part where we rewind the 70s, pull the tape off the vault, and reintroduce 10 bands who should never have been forgotten. Let's start the countdown at number 10. Mid-70s England, a band called Ace comes out of the UK pub rock scene. Simple gear, live feel, no big label machine behind them. The singer, keyboard player, is Paul Carrack, and his voice sounds like late-night soul, smooth and grown, not bar band rough. Carrack writes a song called How Long. Most people thought it was about catching a cheating girlfriend. He later said it was actually about catching the band's own bass player sneaking off to play with another group. That alone tells you everything. Ace weren't living rock star life. They were living, are we even going to keep this band together next week? Life. How Long gets released in the US in 1975. It explodes. It climbs all the way to number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 in America. But I can't help but have my suspicion, 'cause I ain't. And also hits number 3 in Canada. It even lands in the UK top 20. That's insane. especially for a band that never had the superstar marketing push. You almost never see a British bar band with a blue-eyed soul single in the US top 3. This is one of those vocals where the second he opens his mouth, you believe him, and that matters in pop. Pop will forgive anything except fake emotion. Here's the sad part. Ace never really turned that one song into a long-term mainstream career. The label never turned them into a brand. Radio loved the single, not the band name, and then Carrick himself got pulled into other projects. Squeeze in the early 80s, Tempted, Mike plugged the Mechanics. In the late 80s, The Living Years. So, years later, people know the voice, but they don't connect it back to Ace. Question for you, be honest, did you know How Long was Ace? Or did you just think it was that Paul Carrick song from the 70s? Because that gap is the whole story.
Hey, Pop Lore family. Did you know only 1% of viewers are subscribed? If you love deep dives into pop legends, forgotten gems, and the stories behind the songs that shaped generations, hit that subscribe button right now. And don't forget to turn on LL notifications so you'll be the first to know when we premiere our next video. It's free, it helps Pop Lore grow, and it makes sure you never miss a single countdown or music story. Let's build this community together.
Trying to forget you is just a waste of time.
Now we're in LA, 1977. Player is built on smooth West Coast pop, soft rock, and heartbreak energy. It's not loud arena rock. It's not disco. It's that midnight in a car, windows cracked, breakup replaying in your head sound.
False bravado. Trying to keep up a smile.
The main writers and founders, Peter Beckett and J.C. Crowley, literally wrote Baby Come Back after their relationships fell apart, and then it happens.
I'm right back where I started again. Trying to forget.
Baby Come Back doesn't just chart, it goes all the way to #1 on the US Billboard Hot 100 for 3 straight weeks in January 1978. On top of that, it even hits the US R&B chart top 10. Pause there. An LA soft rock band, 2 white singer-writers, and they cross into R&B radio in 1978. That tells you how clean the groove is.
You can blame it all on me.
Baby Come Back is one of those songs that sounds like you've always known it the first time you hear it. So why didn't Player become a giant brand the way, say, Hall & Oates became a giant brand? Timing and identity. Radio loved that one single, but the public never locked onto Player as a personality.
And everything about you. Baby, come back.
The band didn't have a big visual story or a wild scandal or a this is who they are look. They were grown men singing adult heartbreak, not characters. They kept making music, but mainstream culture stamped them one-hit wonder, even though they were way more musically fluent than that label makes it sound.
And everything about you.
Question for you, is one-hit wonder actually fair here, or is that just lazy radio history?
I know what you've been going through.
Late 70s South Africa, a band called Clout shows up with a lineup led by women, which already made them stand out in rock and pop at that time. They cover a song called Substitute, originally done by the Righteous Brothers. Now pause. Being an all-female band at first in the rock space in the 70s was already a fight.
Every day you waited for her.
Being from South Africa in the late 70s during apartheid created a political cloud over whether some countries would even put you on TV. UK performers' unions were already pressuring broadcasters not to platform South African acts. The BBC's Top of the Pops literally used footage from Dutch TV.
Whenever you need me.
Instead of filming Clout in studio because of those rules. Even with all that weight, Substitute goes off. In 1978, Clout's version hits #2 on the UK singles chart and stays on the UK charts for 15 weeks. Outside the UK, it goes number 1 in Germany, Ireland, New Zealand, South Africa, the Netherlands, Norway, and Switzerland. That's not almost made it, that's took over half the planet. And yet, ask random casual listeners today who Clout are.
And find someone to take her place.
Most people can't answer why. A few reasons. First, they got packaged as that girl band with that cover instead of a long-term recording act with its own identity. Second, the political moment around South Africa kept them from getting the normal press cycle and TV exposure in some English-speaking markets.
I've been waiting here for you, Sam.
So Clout becomes a chart fact, not a household name, which is wild. Imagine going number 2 in the UK and number 1 in multiple countries and still getting treated like a trivia question.
Don't you know I'll be your substitute?
I want to hear from you on this one. Do you feel like the industry would have treated Clout differently if they'd come out of, say, London instead of Johannesburg? Because that's part of this conversation. It's not always about the song, sometimes it's about the passport. City Boy come out of Birmingham, England. They're not a dumb band. The writing is witty. The vocals are layered. They've got this mix of smart pop, art rock attitude, and radio-friendly hooks. They're produced by a young Robert John Mutt Lang, the same producer who would later shape AC/DC, Def Leppard, and even Shania Twain's global sound. Their single 5.7.0.5 sounds like a late-night plea built around a phone number. It's catchy in a way that almost feels like a TV theme. In 1978, 5.7.0.5 becomes their biggest song. It hits number 8 on the UK singles chart. It climbs to 27 on the US Billboard Hot 100. That is not easy.
When my number's on the wall of your room, call me soon.
A lot of UK bands never cross into the US Hot 30 at all. Cracking the US Top 30 means American radio programmers decided, yes, our audience will get this. City Boy even toured the US, playing dozens of gigs, including opening slots for Hall & Oates. And yet, after that, most casual listeners lost the name City Boy.
With your phone book, love still waiting on the wire.
This is that classic pop tragedy. You can have the song, but if nobody knows who you are, your faces, your story, your brand, radio will spin you today and forget you tomorrow. You can almost hear the frustration in the timeline. They had the producer, they had the hook, they had the chart positions, and then they hit the wall. So here's my question for you. Do you think 5.7.0.5 didn't last because the song felt very tied to 1978, like a timestamp? Or is it because the band never had a follow-up single that felt even bigger the way some acts do? Because this is something we're going to see again and again. The industry will let you have one weird hit, but it won't always let you build a career off being clever.
For a moment, I caught her eye as a big limousine pulled slowly.
Smokie start out in Yorkshire, England in the 70s. They're not glam in a cartoon way. They're not disco. They're doing this laid-back, sad, small-town storytelling style, pop rock with country edges. They link up with writers, producers, Nicky Chin and Mike Chapman, who were behind a lot of 70s hits.
Out of Alice's Drive.
The song Living Next Door to Alice is something every teenager understands immediately. I've loved this girl next door forever. I never said it, and now she's leaving. That's the whole movie right there. Smokie released their version in late 1976. It doesn't just do fine, it takes off worldwide.
We grew up together.
In the UK, it peaks at number 5 on the singles chart and stays on the chart for 11 weeks. In the US, it reaches number 25 on the Billboard Hot 100 in March 1977. And in Europe, this thing is a monster. Number 1 in places like Austria, Germany, Ireland, the Netherlands, Norway, and Switzerland. It even hit number 2 in Australia and sat on that country's charts for 23 weeks.
How I feel and maybe get a second glass. Now I gotta get used to not living.
That's global reach. That's not cult success. That's people in multiple languages are singing the same heartbreak at the same time. Here's where it twists, because Smokie were quieter in terms of image, more working class, more regular guys with regular heartbreak.
Being Alice.
They didn't slot cleanly into the U.S. pop story. America, at that moment, was pulling in disco flash and arena rock drama. Smokie were telling a softer, more emotional story, and outside Europe, that tone didn't get protected. In a lot of places, Smokie got simplified to
We grew up together, 2 kids in the park. Carved our
the Alice Band, almost like they were a one-joke act, which is crazy because they had a run of successful singles across Europe in the mid-late 70s, not just that one track.
This video is sponsored by the Lore Store on Amazon, your one-stop shop for music lovers across reggae, rock, pop, and hip-hop. We built it for real listeners who don't want to dig through 1,000 listings to find the right gear. Inside the Lore Store, you'll find 5 aisles. VIP, top, battle-tested essentials. Headphones, turntables, speakers, gig-safe earplugs, smart speakers. Reggae vibe, roots and lovers. Rock made easy, automatic decks, warm bookshelf speakers, vinyl care. Rock lore, classic rock must-haves, open back cans, simple amps, living room concert vibes. Pop lore, feel-good everyday setups, clean, clear speakers, easy streaming, nostalgia-friendly picks. Hip-hop must-haves, punchy bass without the muddle, closed-back headphones and living room systems that handle low end, plus a rotating crate of old album vinyl if you're rebuilding a 60s-90s collection. Every product page tells you who it's for, 3 pros, 1 con, and why we picked it. So you can choose with confidence. Flying soon? Check. VIP for noise canceling that tames plane roar. Mostly listening at home? Try open-back headphones that let live albums breathe. Want instant gratification vinyl? Our fully automatic turntable is 1 button from silence to music, and the record cleaning kit knocks down crackle so the bass tightens up. Headed to shows? Grab high-fidelity earplugs. Hands-free at home? Our smart speaker picks let you say, play 70s reggae or classic pop, and you're there. Deal alert! If you use the link in the description, you'll land on our curated picks with current best available Amazon pricing and active discounts where applicable. Prices change, so buy now to lock in today's deal. Tap the link in the description, pick your aisle, grab a favorite, and tell me which category you want me to build next. The Lore Store. Listen better, with gear that gets out of the way and lets the music live.
right. We'll lay back and observe the
Mid-70s Atlanta, Starbuck forms around songwriter Bruce Blackman. They are not a guitar band in the usual way. They're smooth, laid back, almost dreamy, and here's the weird part. They build their sound around marimba. Not just guitar solos, not synth freakouts, but an actual marimba line played by co-founder Bo Wagner.
moonlight. Feels right.
That alone already makes them different. Most pop radio in 1976 is built on two main energies, disco groove or arena muscle. Starbuck walks in with something else. Late night, humid, quietly seductive, soft pop. It feels like being in a car by the water at 1 a.m. The song Moonlight Feels Right is released, and at first, radio does not care. They take the single around to stations, and most stations tell them, yeah, we'll play it, and then don't actually play it.
I play the radio on southern stations, 'cause southern bells ahead.
But once it finally starts getting spins in spring, summer, it catches. The single climbs and climbs until by late July, early August 1976, it peaks at number 3 on the U.S. Billboard Hot 100 and also reaches number 3 in Canada. Think about that, a first single from a new band with marimba front and center going top 3 in America in 1976. That's not luck, that's a lane. Here's where it hurts.
Feels right. Moonlight.
After after Moonlight Feels Right, Starbuck should have been locked in as one of the faces of what we now call yacht rock, smooth, coastal, romantic 70s pop. But pop history didn't save their name. The song survived. The band didn't. Part of that is branding. Starbuck didn't have an obvious look to sell on TV the way some bands did. Part of it is timing. Disco and arena rock were getting louder, and subtle romance pop without a story didn't get protected.
We'll lay back and observe the constellations and watch the moon smile.
What? So today, most people know the hook, "The wind blew some luck in my direction," but if you ask who did that song, they blank. Even though we're talking about a top 3 U.S. single. Question for you, do you judge a band by how famous their name is or by how good their one perfect single is? Because Starbuck is the test case. If a band nails one eternal mood, are they legendary or forgotten?
Crazy music playing in the morning.
Pilot comes out of Scotland in the early 70s, built around 2 core writers, David Payton and Billy Lyle. They link up with producer Alan Parsons, who brings this clean, polished, almost glassy studio sound. What makes Pilot special is tone. They aren't rough, they aren't angry, they're bright. Magic sounds like sunlight hitting water. The bass is melodic. The vocal is feather light, confident. It's not trying to impress you with power. It just makes you feel good. Magic becomes their calling card. In 1975, it hits number 5 on the U.S. Billboard Hot 100, goes number 1 in Canada, and hits number 11 in the UK. That's a serious international run, and then they do something most so-called one-hit wonder bands never do. They follow it with another hit. The song January goes all the way to number 1 in the UK. And also tops charts in places like Australia. So let's be clear, Pilot were not a one-song act. They had at least 2 real hits in multiple countries.
Dreaming on my pillow in the morning. Never been a
Here's the problem. In the US, January didn't land as hard as Magic, so America kinda locked them into, oh yeah, that oh ho ho, it's Magic Band, and then moved on. That's unfair because when you really listen, what Pilot are doing is high-level 70s pop craft, tight arrangements, stacked harmonies, hooks that stick without screaming.
It's magic, you know.
The kind of songwriting that sits next to ELO, 10cc, Supertramp, but they never get mentioned with those names. Let me ask you something directly. When you think 70s pop genius, who do you say first? Do Pilot even cross your mind? If not,
Leaning on my pillow in the morning.
why not? Is it because they sounded too light, too happy, and we take serious music more seriously? Be honest, because that bias drives who gets remembered. The Rubettes are a UK group who arrive in 1974 with a very clear aesthetic, retro 50s harmonies, massive falsetto, white suits, caps, almost doo-wop styling, but delivered through glam-era production and attitude. In other words, they were playing with nostalgia on purpose. They weren't just copying the 50s, they were stylizing it, exaggerating it, making it sparkle. Their debut single, Sugar Baby Love, hits like a bomb. It goes to number 1 in the UK and stays there 4 straight weeks in May 1974. It also hits the US Top 40, reaching number 37 on the Billboard Hot 100. Outside the UK and US, it's huge across Europe. Number 1 in Germany, the Netherlands, Switzerland, and more. The falsetto is extreme. The bop shoo-waddy backing vocals are non-stop for basically the whole song. Producers were told this won't work, and then it sold in the millions worldwide. Here's what blows my mind. The Rubettes basically predicted the 50s nostalgia wave that would dominate later in the 70s with things like the movie Grease and TV shows romanticizing that era, but they almost never get credit for being early. Pop history tends to treat Sugar Baby Love like a cheesy novelty instead of seeing it as smart pop design ahead of the market. Why? Part of it is image. When you commit to a strong visual concept, matching outfits, throwback vibe, people think gimmick, even if the songwriting is tight and the vocal work is insane. So I'll give you this challenge. Does Sugar Baby Love live in your head as an actual pop masterclass, or does it sit in your mind as that oldie-sounding song from the 70s? Because the way you answer that tells me how you judge Polish, camp, and fun in pop. Also, would the Rubettes get more respect today if a modern act dressed like that and called it a concept instead of a gimmick? You tell me. Cleveland, 1972. The Raspberries hit at a time when rock is getting heavier and looser. They go the other way. They tighten back up. They chase melody. They want songs you can sing. Eric Carmen is writing these tracks that mix Beatles-level hooks with teenage desperation energy and loud guitars. That blend becomes known as power pop.
Just hold me close. Don't ever
Go All the Way comes out in July 1972. It is not subtle. Lyrically, it's basically two teenagers pushing the line physically. The BBC bans it for being too sexual. That kills some UK exposure. But in the US, the opposite. It explodes. The single hits number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100, number 4 on Cashbox, and number 3 on Record World. It sells over 1.3 million copies and goes gold.
never knew how complete life could be.
That kind of number is serious. That's not cult, that's mainstream. This is where the story turns into influence. The sound the Raspberries were making, big chorus, crunch guitars, emotional urgency becomes the template for basically every hooky radio rock but still pop band that came after. You hear it in Cheap Trick, The Knack, early Rick Springfield, even into 80s alternative-leaning acts. But again, history wasn't kind with the branding. Instead of being called pioneers, they got locked into that lazy phrase, 70s one-hit, short-run band, which is wild because to serious music heads, the Raspberries are ground zero for American power pop.
She whispered, I love you, so please go.
So let me ask you, in pop, what matters more, chart numbers in the moment or DNA that gets copied for the next 20 years? Because if you say influence matters, the Raspberries should be way higher in the general public memory than they are. They're not nostalgia, they're a starting point.
Hey, Pop Lore family. Did you know only 1% of viewers are subscribed? If you love deep dives into pop legends, forgotten gems, and the stories behind the songs that shaped generations, hit that subscribe button right now. And don't forget to turn on LL notifications so you'll be the first to know when we premiere our next video. It's free, it helps Pop Lore grow, and it makes sure you never miss a single countdown or music story. Let's build this community together.
Memphis. Big Star forms in 1971 around Alex Chilton, who had already been famous as a teenager with the Box Tops, Chris Bell, Jody Stevens, and Andy Hummel. They record their debut album, #1 record at Ardent Studios. Critics lose their minds. Some writers literally say every cut could be a single. But because of label and distribution problems, Stax Records' distribution deal was a mess at the time. The album barely even shows up in stores. It reportedly sold fewer than 10,000 copies on first release. So pause on that. Imagine making this beautiful, emotional, radio-ready album and people can't even buy it. That's Big Star's curse.
Tell me what, how can I deny what's inside?
By 1974, with Bell gone, they released the second album, Radio City. On it is September Girls, written by Chilton. This song is basically perfect guitar pop, chiming bittersweet, vulnerable without whining, catchy without being dumb. It's now widely called a power pop classic. praised by outlets like Rolling Stone and later covered by The Bangles in 1986. At the same time, another early big star track, In the Street, becomes much more famous years later.
Boys got it bad.
When Cheap Trick's version is used as the theme song to That 70s Show. That means millions of people have heard Big Star's melody and didn't even know it. So you have this unbelievable situation. Songs with that much reach, songs that connected emotionally to generations of listeners, but no breakout hit at the time. Today, Big Star are called a cult band. People say influential, ahead of their time. The band your favorite band worships, REM, The Replacements, a huge part of what later became indie guitar music. They all drew from that Big Star sound. Honest lyrics, ringing guitars, melody that aches a little. Here's the big question. Does that make them failures or legends?
Tell the girls there's so much on the show.
Commercially in the 70s, Big Star were almost invisible. Distribution drama killed their shot. Internal strain and sadness killed their stability.
She likes love to me.
But in terms of the long arc, they might be the most important lost pop band of the decade. Some critics literally call September Girls the greatest #1 song that never charted. So I'm gonna ask you straight, is pop about impact? Right now, or is it about the echo 10, 20, 30 years later? Because if you believe the echo counts, Big Star is #1 and it's not even close. The journey doesn't end here, pop lovers. Watch this next.